Hermione's Song, Chapter 20. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, 996 A.D. The doctor let go of Hermione's shoulder and started to manically pace back and forth. "All right, let's review the facts," he said, not caring who was listening to him. "We are facing about 1,000 zombies, and from what I saw, they appear to be the shambling, flesh-eating variety rather than the talk radio or Ministry of Motor Vehicles type. And that's bad," he told no one in particular, his face glum. The doctor spun around on the ball of his foot and suddenly looked happier. "Of course, being zombies. That means that they are already dead, so I won't feel guilty about destroying them. That's good," he said much more cheerfully. The doctor took another step, turned around, and froze in place. He held out his finger and made motions in the air as if he were working on a complex computation on a whiteboard. "Divide by alpha and carry the 2, he muttered to himself, before his face went back to looking glum. "With 1,000 of them and just 4 of us, the odds of us all surviving are very bad," he told his friends. What Hermione saw in Rowena and Helga's behavior only reinforced in her mind that they indeed knew the doctor. They both had their arms crossed with bemused smiles on their faces, waiting patiently for him to finish with his ranting. Hermione decided to follow their example and leaned against the short stone wall that kept the uncoordinated from falling off the edge of the bridge and into the chasm below. The doctor was completely oblivious to what was going on around him as he let his mind run wild. He snapped his fingers and turned to face Hermione and the 2 female founders. "Of course, I failed to factor in that I happen to have 3 extremely powerful witches to back me up." "That's very good," he surmised. Hermione frowned while she interjected herself into the doctor's flow of consciousness.
"I'm not really sure how much help we can be, Doctor,"
she told him.
"The undead, especially zombies, are resistant to most forms of direct magic. Even the 3 unforgivable curses are useless against them. They're under someone else's control, can't feel pain, and are already dead," she pointed out. The doctor just looked at her for a moment and then went back to pacing. "That is very, very bad," he said slowly. He paced back and forth several more times before stopping in mid-stride. "You said they were resistant to direct magic. I take it they're affected by normal physics and indirect magic?" he stated, starting to form a plan. Hermione nodded, wondering what he had come up with. His sour expression vanished, and she recognized the same happy look Harry and Ron got when they came up with an ingenious scheme to get around the rules. As much as she hated to admit it, over the years she had grown ever more involved in their plotting and found that she secretly enjoyed breaking the rules. The doctor motioned for the 3 women to join him in a quick huddle as he started to explain his plan to them. After waiting for the enemy army to finally arrive, the doctor and Hermione stood next to each other at the end of the bridge closest to Hogwarts. He could sense her tension and gave her hand a quick squeeze. Hermione squeezed his hand back and squared her shoulders. The first wave of the shambling monsters was almost at the far end of the bridge. They watched in disgust as one of the zombies in the front row lost an arm that had barely been holding on. A zombie behind the first one picked up the arm and started chewing on it, an appetizer before the main meal. The irony of what they saw wasn't lost on either time traveler. "Death Eaters," they muttered in unison. The doctor looked over his shoulder at Rowena and Helga, who were standing a few feet behind and slightly to either side of Hermione and him. "Ready?" he shouted. The older witches nodded and pointed their wands at the advancing horde. The doctor looked at Hermione fondly before excitedly whispering, "Showtime!" Hermione looked over the side of the bridge down to the river running beneath them. She closed her eyes and concentrated on what she wanted to do. With her eyes still closed, she gave her wand the precise swish and flick she had learned as a first-year student while shouting, "Wingardium Leviosa!" A huge column of water sprang forth from the river and rocketed skywards. Hermione opened her eyes and used all of her mental strength to make the column of water arch and land in the direct center of the bridge. Both sides in the battle were splashed by the waves. As soon as the water hit the bridge, Rowena and Helga stepped past the doctor and Hermione. They wove their wands in a complex pattern and yelled,
"Tempestia frigidum!"
Twin cyclones blasted out of the tips of their wands, sending a double-strength Arctic storm racing across the bridge. The gale force winds blew apart a few of the zombies in the front row and pushed the rest back for a few seconds. Those not busy munching on their fallen comrades began their slow march forward once the winds died down. The doctor was at a loss for words to describe what happened next. The first wave of zombies made it back onto the bridge, and then all chaos broke loose. It was like watching a Disney on Ice production if the entire crew had just been on a weekend drinking binge. Zombies slid from side to side, fell flat on their faces, and generally found it difficult to balance on the sheet of ice the three witches had created. Some of the less held together zombies split into pieces when they slid into the stone wall lining the bridge. The doctor's amusement ended when he saw a fatal flaw in his plan. As more and more zombies fell onto the ice, the ranks behind them simply walked across their backs. After a quick calculation, the doctor realized at least half of the zombies would end up reaching their end of the bridge. He snapped his fingers as he thought up of a plan B. Grabbing Hermione by the shoulders, the doctor looked her in the eyes. "People tell me that you're the brightest witch of your generation," he told her. He smiled a bit as he added, "From what I've seen, I have to disagree. You must be the brightest witch in 10 generations, he praised her. "I need you to come up with a way to chill everything down at that end of the bridge to near absolute zero," he requested desperately. He pulled out his sonic screwdriver and tapped his palm. "If you can do that, I might be able to add something to this fight," he said softly. Hermione's eyes widened when she caught on to what the doctor was hoping to do.
"If this works, I'm not helping clean up,"
she joked. She frowned for a moment while she tried to come up with the appropriate spell. Even though improvisation was extremely dangerous when casting magic, she knew the mechanics well enough to attempt it. She held her wand out and started twirling it in large, quick circles. As she slowed her movements down, she stated,
"Molecular immobilis,"
causing the air temperature around the zombies to plummet. As soon as the words left her mouth, Hermione collapsed at the doctor's feet from overexertion. He spared a quick glance down at her, and then back up to the advancing zombies who had stopped in their tracks. The water vapor in the air had crystallized, making everything, even the zombies, sparkle. "Sparkling undead? Now there's something no one will ever believe," he muttered. Holding out his sonic screwdriver, he set the gain to maximum and slowly slid the ring that controlled the frequency. After a couple of seconds worth of trying, the doctor hit on the right frequency and created a resonance wave that swept through the frozen zombies. They shattered like a rose dipped in liquid nitrogen being smashed onto a table. Rowena and Helga stood awestruck at the collective powers of their sworn lord and lady. They snapped out of it when the doctor dropped to his knees and cradled Hermione's head in his lap. Helga rushed forward and touched the tip of her wand to Hermione's forehead. The head of Hufflepuff House sighed in relief when she felt Hermione's life force through her wand.
"Oh, she's but asleep, my lord,"
she told the doctor.
"It's a wonder she survived creating a new spell and throwing so much of herself behind it the first time it's used,"
she clucked. Rowena looked at the zombie debris in disgust. It would take the groundkeeping staff at least a week before they could clean everything up enough to let the students back in that area. Thinking of students made her turn to face the castle. She was worried first for her lover Godric, and then for Sir Harry and his future bride.
"Try not to get yourself killed, my love,"
she whispered.